Hey, I'm Not So Ace Trainer and house crime in the Alola region. Let's get into it. Before we start, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future Pokemon content. And now, onto the video. Welcome to the 7th episode of our Crime in the Pokémon World series, where today we're going to the tropical islands of Alola, where we had a throwback to Gen 3 with a double menace on the Villanous Teams side. Team Skull and the Aether Foundation were the two teams we had to deal with in this region, with the first one being the typical group and the latter being the surprise of the game. I'll divide this analysis into two different sections since both these teams are very different from each other. It's also very important to note that there are differences between Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun Ultra Moon, mostly on the Aether Foundation side of the story, so I'll try to combine them in a way that makes sense. With that said, let's start with Team Skull. Team Skull is based on the common Street Gang. In Hawaii, where the Alola region is based on, Street Gangs are varied and have a long history, though none follow the same aesthetic as Team Skull. So it's fair to say that there isn't really anything specific that we could point out as being Team Skull's inspiration. About their goal, Team Skull are the first team to not really have one. At least not one as grandiose as all the other villains. They consist on misfits who failed their island challenge and felt like they lost their place in society. This is a very common thing in our world as well. For example, Hershey's theory of social bonding explains deviance as the result of weak bonds with social institutions. If we consider the island challenge as the social norm in Alola, it could be that real-world theory explains the expansion of Team Skull. Because of this, they tried to create their own society with their own rules in Po Town, a town that they have taken over and which they support through criminal means. While the Team Skull we meet in our adventures in Pokémon Sun and Moon and Pokémon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are not the original Team Skull, they are still a united front under their leader Guzma, kinship, and the idea of being against the island challenge and social norms in Alola. Now, let's take a look at their crimes and see where they stand against other teams. We first encounter them in Hau'oli City, where they try to steal Ilima's Pokémon. Nothing too much and a bit of the usual, attempted theft is the first one on the list. Then we find them harassing the Berry Master on Route 2, trying to steal his berries. That's a second count of attempted theft and harassing that go on the list. While we find them trying to sabotage our trial in the Verdant Cavern, I can't consider that a crime since I don't know if that truly is one, so we'll just ignore that annoyance. After this, we do find out that they tried to steal the totem Pokemon Araquanid from Brooklet Hill, only to be stopped by Gladion. So I guess that's another attempted theft onto the list. On Route 6, we find them harassing Hapu and trying to steal a Drifblim, which gives them another count of attempted theft and another one for harassing. These ones do not feel as evil as before. Where are all the volcanoes and stuff? We do battle them a few times after this, meeting Plumeria and Guzma, their leader, but nothing screams crime or anything like that during that time. It's just random meetings and random battles. We also start to notice some interest in what's inside Lily's bag. After Acerola's trial though, we go back to their criminal antics when we find out they stole a child's Yungas and took it to Po Town. That's theft, their first count weirdly enough. Not a very effective street gang, are they? Anyway, in Po Town, nothing really criminal happens, but we do have to give them a vandalism count, intimidation and destruction of property. They did take that place to themselves and completely destroyed it. While we deal with nothing criminal in Po Town, we do find out that Plumeria kidnapped Lily and that the Aether Foundation has something to do with everything. Kidnapping goes to the list and we'll talk about the Aether Foundation in a minute. After this, things start to change with Guzma having to deal with his mistakes after witnessing the Ultra Space and the craziness of Slusamine, actually ending up as the first villains to be reformed. Kudos to them. Let's plug it all into the evil scale real quick and see where they fit. This one isn't hard at all. We're not talking about evil people here, we're talking about misfits that felt like there was no place for them in the world around them. They lived together and supported each other, although in a bad and criminal way. There was no world domination, destruction of the universe, or releasing a literal god of something for power. For this reason and they repent at the end of the games, Team Skull gets a 2 on the evil scale. They would get the 1, but stealing is bad. Let's take a look at the Aether Foundation now. The Aether Foundation were the surprise villains in the Alola games, being the cherry on top of a story that really helped solidify the Gen 5 to Gen 7 period as the best in terms of storytelling. They are an organization dedicated to preserving and caring for Pokemon, defending them from villains such as Team Skull. But, as we all know, organizations tend to have an underlying goal in the world of Pokemon. The Aether Foundation is no different. It's fair to say that most of the people that work for the Foundation, including Lusamine, its president, care for the well-being of Pokemon. But we know for a fact that Faba was more interested in experimenting than actually protecting Pokémon. As for Lusamine, she was obsessed with the Ultra Beast and Ultra Space, due to her husband's disappearance a few years prior to the events of the Alola games, leaving behind only Cosmog and his research on Nihilego. The way she deals with this differs from game to game. In Pokémon Sun and Moon, she develops an obsession with Nihilego and is eventually pushed to madness by its toxins, while in Pokémon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, her madness comes from wanting to use the Ultra Beast to protect the world. Either way, she loses her mind. Lose her mind. Lose her mind, that's neat. Now let's look at the crimes and see where they stand. Every encounter we have with the Aether Foundation up until the point where we go to Po Town are pretty normal encounters, nothing suspicious or criminal at all. But right after we are done with Po Town, as we've talked about with Team Skull, we learn that Lily was kidnapped. Team Skull did that, but that's a strange act for them. Who ordered it then? Well, the Aether Foundation, of course. So, in a weird change from our usual start, the list is topped with kidnapping. After this first encounter with her criminal antics, the next thing we see is how little Nebby is being treated by Lusamine, which constitutes a count of Pokémon abuse. Now, in both iterations of the story, this leads into Lusamine and Guzma going into the wormhole, though in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon things get a bit more dangerous when Ultra wormholes start opening all across the region, with Ultra Beasts coming out, including the Necrozma, which is why I decided to put an Endangering the World count in the crime list. In Sun and Moon though, Nihilego combines itself with Lusamine, which, despite a very cool moment, it's not criminal. Weirdly enough, that is all for the Aether Foundation. Let's now plug it all into the evil scale and see where they stand. Despite putting the world in danger, it was just a consequence of something unknown. It was fueled by nothing but Lusamine's own personal goals, with most of the Foundation not knowing that was happening at all. But it was also the result of the sorrow of losing someone she loved. Another case of good intentions through questionable goals. After their defeat, they continue their work with Pokémon, protecting them in the Alola region. For this reason, they are getting a 3.5 on the evil scale. I feel like they were not evil. Well, maybe Faba was, since he did try to sell out the Aether Foundation to Team Rainbow Rocket, but still, the overall goal of the Foundation was very good, with only the craziness of Lusamine getting in the way. That is all for this video. Join me next week for the final episode of the series, where we go to the Alola region and look at the villainous things that happen there. You can follow me on social media, Twitch, or join our Discord, all the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.